Okay guys, this is Karen Jones. I'm going to show you how to set up your document for the Peru travel brochure. We're going to be following the instructions in the workbook, the Against the Clock InDesign workbook, Project 5, Folding Travel Brochure. I'm not going to follow all the directions, but I'm going to begin on page 301. So we're going to start here by going to Create New. All right, we want the print presets. We're calling this letter fold, and we're going to change the units to inches. We want the width to be 4, the height to be 9. We don't want facing pages. There's only one page, and we do want this checked, primary text frame. We want one column. For this, we're going to use margins. Keep this constrained, so make sure that that link is not broken. And we're going to make the margins on this 1/4 of an inch, so that's 0.25 inches all around. We're going to use a bleed on this one. Again, we want it constrained. And this bleed, I want to be 0.125, so that's standard 1/8 of an inch bleed all around, which adds 1/4 of an inch to your document. This time we're actually going to be using slug. So slug is a non-printing area of your document. It's generally used to show the printer some information about the document, and for this we're going to have the fold marks. So when you have a 3-fold brochure, you need to show the printer where the folds actually lie. So in the slug areas where we're going to create that. So for this, we want to make sure that it is unconstrained, and we want the top and the bottom to be 1/2 an inch, so that's 0.5. Left and right will not have any slug on them, and that is very important. Now we'll hit create. All right, so now I'm on the top of page 302. So we want to open up the Pages panel here to see where we're at. So right now I've got the one page that I created as I expected. It's 4 by 9. I've got the margins here. The bleed is indicated by the red. Looks like, and then the blue guide here is actually the slug area. All right. So we're going to be working in master pages for this. So here's where it's important. When you're building the master pages, you want to be up here in the master part. As you're adding content, you want to make sure that you're down below this line. So right now we're just going to click into the master page. We're going to make sure we're in master pages, and now I'm going to right click on this page and go to master options for a master, which is the default master page. So we can leave it as the prefix A, but here we're going to change the name to outside, and this is going to create the outside side of this 3-fold document, and the number of pages here is going to be 3. All right, and now we're going to hit OK, and now you can see that we've got the 3 pages here as expected in the master pages. But look here, it's still just the one down here in the regular pages. All right. So we want to make sure that we are clicked into this. If we click outside into this page, you can see it's highlighted. We want to make sure that we're clicked into the master pages here. All right. So using the selection tool, this guy, we're going to click into the margin area of the left page. So remember, we created a text frame, a primary text frame when we created this document. And that's the icon for the primary text frame. What we're going to do here is we're going to clone it. There's no text frame on these 2 panels. So to get to the clone, it's going to be holding the Alt or Option, and you can see it changed my cursor icon to this double arrow. That is the clone tool. So now I'm going to holding Alt, I'm going to click, and I'm going to drag to the right, and if I hold Shift, it'll constrain it. All right, so now I've got the primary text frame, and then I've cloned this text frame, but it's a normal text frame. Now I'm going to hold Alt again. I've got the clone icon, and I'm going to pull that as I'm holding Shift, and now I've got another text frame here. So all three of these panels now have a text frame, with this one being the primary. What that means is if I need to flow the text, it'll automatically flow into these other text frames. All right. Okay, so we've cloned our text frames. Now we're going to use this page tool. We haven't used this one before. I'm going to deselect everything, and I'm going to select the page tool here. So what this does is I can select and move individual pages within this document. And you can see up here in the options that with this one selected, I can see that it's 4 inches by 9 inches. But before I do anything, I want to make some changes here. I want to make sure that in the liquid page rule that I have object-based selected. And then I want to check objects move with page right here. One more thing I'm going to change or make sure is selected before I move out of this is to make sure up here in the reference point that I have the center right reference point selected. What that's going to do is any changes I make, like if I drag this over, it's going to anchor the side, it's going to anchor it to that reference point. All right. So now I'm going to show you how InDesign can do some math for us. So I'm going to select this page, the leftmost page, and I'm going to drop my cursor right next to that 4, and I'm going to have InDesign do the math for us. I'm going to have it be width of 4 inches and then type in minus 0.125. And what that's going to do is when I hit enter, it's going to do the math for me, and it's going to change this page to 4 inches minus that 1/8 of an inch, and that's going to allow for the fold. You could also just type in 3.875 if you know the dimensions. Okay, so selection tool, page tool. All right, I am now at so I've completed step 13. Step 14 is actually to save your document. We're going to now add the slug information and the fold marks. All right, so here again is the slug information up here. All right, so I'm gonna zoom in a little bit on this. All right, so I'm gonna grab my type tool here, and I'm going to click and drag out a text box in the slug area. And now I'm just going to type in here, outside, left panel, fold in. All right, and that's going to be good information to you as you're building this, so you know where you're at. And then I'm going to make sure that that is aligned center. The font doesn't matter at all. I'm just going to leave it as our default Minion Pro. All right. Now I'm going to go to Window and go down to Output. And what you can see here, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but these are alphabetical. We're going to go to Output. And here we want to select Attributes. That's going to open up the Attributes panel. And what we want to do is make sure that we are not allowing this text to be printed. And so we're going to select this text frame. And then we want to make sure that we have it as non-printing selected here. All right, so that is not going to be a printed part. It's just for viewing and building the document. All right, now we're going to get rid of that. I'm going to right click in this, and so right clicking gives me all these options. What I want to have checked here is allow master item overrides. So if you've created something in your master pages and then you put it down into the regular normal pages, you cannot override items without specifically indicating that you can. For this, we're giving it permission to override this particular master page item. So we want that checked. All right, and now we're going to clone this. So we're going to select it, hold Alt, and now I'm going to drag this over to the center panel. And now I want to change this to outside center panel. So we'll change this to center. And we want this to be the mailing area. So this brochure we're creating is a self-mailer. The postage and address would all be in this center panel. And by the way, it needs to be oriented so that it's horizontal when you read it. So we're going to go clone this text frame again over here. So hold Alt, drag, and I'm holding Shift. And this one we're going to call in outside right panel. And we want this to be the front. All right. Okay, so now we're going to create those fold marks. Let me move this out of the way a little bit. To do that, I want to use the line tool. This is my recording button, but we're going to use the line tool here. All right, and here I'm going to come up here to this area, right where my panels come together, and I'm going to click and hold Shift to constrain it vertically, and I'm just going to pull a line down. I don't want this line to go down into the document. I want it to remain above the document. All right, so now we're going to define that line stroke. Right now it's at 0 points. We want to make sure that it's 0.5 points, so that's half a point. We do want it to be a black stroke. All right, but you indicate a fold as a dotted line. So now we're going to go into the options for the line. You can get to it here. All right, so here's dashed lines. Or you can get to it in the stroke panel. And the stroke panel actually gives you a lot more options if you haven't looked at this yet, as far as the cap and where that stroke is aligned to the object. Here we're going to select that dashed line, and then when we do that, we have options here to change the dash and the gap. So 12 point is going to be too big for our dash, so we're going to change it here to oh, by the way, I have skipped over, nope, I haven't gotten to it yet. We want this to be 3 point. All right, so when I click away up here, I'll be able to see there's my dashed line. All right, it is not quite perfect in its position, so I want to make sure here I'm just going to type in 3.8 0.875, and that is going to align that, it's going to align this dashed line perfectly with this fold. And then for this particular one, we're going to click it with the selection tool. We're now going to right click on it and then go back to the allow master item overrides, and we're going to turn it off for this. All right, that means we can't change that once it's down in the panels. All right, so we're going to clone this line and we're going to move it to the X position of 7.875. So I'm going to select it. I'm going to hold Alt to get that clone tool. I'm going to hold Shift, and now I'm going to drag this over. I'm going to look at my cursor feedback, but if I don't get it precise, I can go up here and change that to 7.875. And now it's perfectly aligned with that fold. All right, so this part gets a little tricky, especially if you're on a small screen. I want to see all of my document, but I'm going to select this dotted line. I'm going to hold Shift, and I'm going to come and select this one. And now I'm going to hold the Alt key down now. Nope. To get the, bear with me, select Alt. Ooh, there's my clone tool. That's why it gets so tricky. And I'm just going to drag these two lines down until they are in the slug area at the bottom. I'm just going to nudge those down. Okay, so you should have these two little lines down here. If you find this to be too tricky, you can create those lines from scratch. You do not have to clone them. You could also copy them. So Command C, Command V, you've pasted it. Now you can move it to the position you want. So don't feel like you have to use all these keyboard shortcuts if your fingers just don't quite do that. There's a million ways that you can create an InDesign document, and just because the book says to do it doesn't mean you absolutely have to. So now we're at the top of page 307. I'm not going to have you do the text variables. This is some pretty high level InDesign stuff. Honestly, you'll probably never use this. So I'm going to skip over 308, 309. We are going to regroup here at create the inside master pages. All right, so that's the middle of page 310. So we're going to go back into our pages panel here. And here I've got the A outside panels. I'm going to right click and do duplicate master spread. All right, so it called it B master by default. I'm going to click in here and I'm going to go to master options. And here I want to change this to inside. That is the only thing we're going to change there, and then hit OK. So now I've got the outside panels and the inside panels. All right, now so this is something that gets a little tricky. You want to make sure that you are in the B side here. I'm going to snug that back in. I'm going to go back to that page tool. So the important thing about this folding brochure is that if you've got your page and it's got one panel that's shorter, and then you flip that page over, your short panel is now gone from the left side to the right side. So in order to create this document correctly, we're going to have to move, either change the size of this panel back to 4, and then change this one to 3.8, That's a perfectly adequate way to do it. Or we can take that page tool and we're going to select this side. Let me make sure I'm doing this. Okay. In the control panel, we want to make sure the objects move with page is selected. And what's that? It's going to do, it's going to move the text frame, and it's going to move the slug and the fold mark with it. All right, so I'm on the top of page 312. All right, I'm going to click outside. I want to make sure I'm clicked outside the text frame area. And then I am going to select this page, and now I'm going to drag it over to this side, and I'm going to let go when it's all the way over. All right. So now I've got this side is 3.875. This is a 4-inch panel, and this one is a 4-inch panel. All right, so hopefully that makes sense to all you. Now I'm going to go in here and I'm going to change how I've labeled these. All right, so I'm going to go into this one and I'm going to rename this one Inside Left Panel. That's it. Spell it right. This one is going to be the inside center panel. And this one is going to be inside right panel. And we're going to leave that labeled as fold in so that we understand that this is the shorter side. All right, so we're going to go to the selection tool. We're going to deselect everything. All right, hopefully we only have a few more steps. So the thing you'll notice here is that this fold mark here is still where it needs to be, but there's no fold mark here. Well, your fold mark went with this page and it's actually right over there. So I'm going to select it and I'm going to drag it back to, it needs to be in the X position of 8 inches. Same with this guy here. I'm going to move this one back over and then make sure that it is perfectly at 8 inches. All right, so now I've got my master pages are all set up. I'm going to skip over, I'm at the middle of page 313. I'm going to skip over making a template for this one and just go right to the part where we're creating regular pages. All right, so I am, okay, so what I want to do is I want to select the outside panel. I'm going to double click on the word, and now I'm going to drag this down into the regular part of the pages. Okay, so it's by default labeled them pages 2, 3, and 4, or 2 through 4. I'm going to select this default page that we created, and I'm going to just drag it to the trash can. Yes, I do want to. All right, so here's my regular pages, and we know we're in the regular pages when we click right onto the name for it. Now I'm going to select the B pages and I'm going to drag those beneath. So now when I'm in the regular part of the document, I can see that I've got those pages and I can scroll back and forth. All right, let me see. This would be a good time to save. So it says in the middle of page 314, let's look at view. Fit spread in window. All right, there we go. So here what's really important is as you're building your Peru brochure, make sure that you are working in this part of the Pages panel and not up into the master pages, all right? You want to always make sure that you're putting your content in the regular pages and not in master pages. A few more things we're going to do. Let's see, the top of page 315. Control right click the selected spread. Let me see, which spread is that? And here, override all master page items. We want to have that checked. And then we're going to do that the same for this one. Override all master page items. And then we're going to open the type pane of the preferences dialog box. All right. So preferences are found on a Mac under the InDesign. I can't remember where they are in Windows. We're going to open up the type preferences here and uncheck the Smart Text Reflow option. Okay, so Smart Text Reflow is right here. We're going to uncheck that. And that is going to be it for setting up the document. All right, so as you're creating your document here, I'm just going to remind you that you can find assets in the Blackboard assignment folder that's going to include some high quality vector logos. They are in an InDesign document. What I want to show you about that, I don't know that I have anything handy, but when you place a vector image, if it doesn't look crisp to you, make sure that you can open up View and you can look at display performance, and a high quality display is going to show that vector image in the highest quality that your display or monitor can show. Typical display is going to have a vector image that's going to look a little low resolution or jaggedy. All right, so what I want to show you here is when you are doing your mailing area. I'm actually going to create a new text frame here. Return address. All right, so assuming that is our return address, you'll want to have a logo and the address. It will be here. Just move that. And your postage or stamp would be indicated here. I'm just going to fill it with something ugly because we don't care. But this is where your postage would be. And this would be the mailing address. I didn't spell it right, but we don't care, do we? What I want you to be careful of is to leave this area open. There shouldn't be any big images or heavy graphics in this area because of mailing restrictions. So make sure you leave this white or very light or have very, very minimal amount of images on this mailing area panel, and that you have oriented it to read horizontally when it's folded. All right, guys, that's all I got for you there. Send me an email if you have questions, and good luck. And I really look forward to seeing what you create. Bye.